Something changed during the Canadian Grand Prix, and it had nothing to do with the weather or the usual unpredictability of the race weekend. The change happened inside Ferrari, quietly, steadily, and without public drama. But for those who understand Formula One, for those who watch not just the race but the rhythm behind the race, the telemetry, the setups, the way a driver steers into a corner or lifts his foot off the throttle, this shift was impossible to ignore. The change had a name: Lewis Hamilton. From the start of the weekend, everything looked routine. Both Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc started with similar car setups. Both rolled out onto the track with the same machinery, the SF25, but within just a few laps of practice, something began to stand out. The telemetry, those hidden layers of performance data that revealed the truth beyond lap times, began to whisper a new story. In corners where Leclerc was fighting the rear end, lifting early, or correcting on exit, Hamilton was smooth, confident, and composed. His inputs were cleaner. His trail braking was earlier and more controlled. He looked like a driver who didn't just understand the car, he was becoming one with it. The shift wasn't obvious at first. It didn't appear in headline lap times or post-session interviews, but Ferrari's engineers saw it in the overlays. Brake pressure, throttle application, steering inputs. Hamilton was more efficient in every area. In free practice 1, the gaps were small but present. By free practice 2, the differences were more visible. Leclerc was pulled from the session due to a safety inspection, leaving Hamilton to gather data alone. And what he provided turned heads. His sector times were sharp, his energy recovery use was optimal, and his tire management was excellent. The car was working with him. That's when the engineers started comparing sector-by-sector overlays. They weren't just interested in Hamilton's pace, they were fascinated by his consistency. He wasn't chasing performance, he was setting the tone. His steering was smoother by measurable margins, reducing tire scrub and wear. He was braking later without instability, carrying more apex speed with less correction. He had found a rhythm that turned the SF25 into a tool of precision. For a car that had seemed difficult earlier in the season, Hamilton was unlocking potential no one else could. What happened next was more psychological than technical. Inside the Ferrari garage, Hamilton's confidence began to shift the atmosphere. His feedback was clear, calm, and filled with purpose. He wasn't asking for the car to be changed around him. He was adapting to it, learning it, bending it gently to his style. Leclerc, meanwhile, seemed to be working harder for less return. His steering traces were jagged, his throttle inputs were sharper but less effective. He was trying to push the car, but it wasn't responding. When free practice 3 came, Leclerc returned to the track, trying to match Hamilton's lines and techniques. But the results were telling. His attempts to mirror Hamilton's throttle through tricky corners led to more tire degradation and less stability. The car didn't want to be driven that way, at least not by him. His tires overheated, particularly the front left, which affected his grip in the twisty first sector. Meanwhile, Hamilton kept his tire temperatures stable within a tight 3-degree window, allowing him to extract grip lap after lap. It wasn't just on-track performance that was changing. The human dynamic inside Ferrari was beginning to shift. Engineers began relying more on Hamilton's data to guide strategy. His simulator runs were used as baselines. His driving style was influencing setup decisions. This wasn't favoritism, was results-based trust. By qualifying, Hamilton wasn't just another Ferrari driver, he was becoming the lead reference. During qualifying, Hamilton outpaced Leclerc by more than 0.6 of a second. In Formula One terms, that's not a margin, it's a message. The telemetry showed how he achieved it, later breaking tighter corner lines and smoother exits. He carried more apex speed with less steering input. He was controlling the SF25 with precision, not force. Leclerc, by contrast, pushed harder, corrected more, and wore out his tires faster. The stopwatch and the data were both in agreement. Hamilton was now leading from the front. What made this even more remarkable was that Hamilton wasn't demanding special treatment. He wasn't calling for big changes or chasing setup miracles. He was working with what he had, and making it work better than anyone else. That kind of influence doesn't happen through orders. It happens through presence, performance, and leadership. Ferrari has long been known for its internal politics, emotional highs and lows, and dramatic swings in form. But with Hamilton, something steadier is taking shape. His influence is calm, focused, and deeply rooted in experience. He brings more than just talent, he brings standards. And now, those standards are reshaping the team. The engineers have noticed, the data analysts have noticed, even the fans watching closely from the grandstands and screens around the world have noticed. Hamilton is no longer the new recruit finding his place. He is the central figure in Ferrari's push to return to the top. For Leclerc, this is not a crisis, it's a challenge. He's a talented, fast, and passionate driver. But now he must respond to a new benchmark within his own team. He can no longer rely on being the default leader. He must now fight for it, not just with speed, but with precision. He must find the harmony with the SF25 that Hamilton has already discovered. This isn't just a story about two teammates. It's about what kind of team Ferrari wants to be. The telemetry doesn't care about emotion, it only reflects results. And right now, those results are pointing to Hamilton as the one guiding the way forward. From Montreal to the rest of the calendar, every session will test whether this new balance holds. The question now is how Ferrari handles it. Can they allow this shift to continue without disrupting the unity that has kept the team stable? Can Leclerc rise to the challenge and reclaim parity? Or will this be the beginning of a new era, where Hamilton not only wears red, but defines what it means to wear it well? Formula One is a sport measured in milliseconds, but those tiny gaps reveal everything. And at Ferrari, the gap between Hamilton and Leclerc is growing not in conflict, but in capability. If that trend continues, there may be no doubt left about who the number one truly is. This shift did not begin with an announcement or a contract. It began in silencing, a garage filled with data, in laps driven with precision, in a car once difficult to master but now singing to a new rhythm. Hamilton is no longer adapting to Ferrari. Ferrari is adapting to him. What lies ahead will not be decided in a single race, but every weekend, every qualifying lap, every tire strategy will add to the growing story of who leads this team into the future. The telemetry is already telling that story, and right now, it is writing Hamilton's name at the top. As the season moves forward, the focus will not only be on upgrades or technical directives, but on how Ferrari manages its two drivers. Because inside, every team lies a natural gravity towards the one who delivers, the one who leads by example, the one whose data becomes the standard. At this moment in the season, that gravity is pulling toward Hamilton. For fans of Ferrari, this could be the beginning of something long awaited. A team built not just on emotion or heritage, but on consistency and performance. For Hamilton, this is the quiet rise he always intended, not with words, but with action. And for Leclerc, the battle is just beginning. Not against his teammate, but against the pressure to match a level of excellence that is now firmly established. The days of guessing who leads Ferrari may soon be over. The answer is arriving one lap at a time. And the data, as always, does not lie in the days following the Canadian Grand Prix. The F1 paddock buzzed with speculation, but not the usual kind. There were no fiery incidents or controversial penalties dominating headlines. Instead, the talk was centered on something more subtle but far more significant, a seismic shift in internal team dynamics at Ferrari. Not through declarations or press releases, but through telemetry and trackside observations, it became clear that Lewis Hamilton was no longer just adjusting to life in red heat, was taking command of it. In the factory back at Maranello, engineers pored over the data from Montreal. The numbers painted a consistent picture. Hamilton wasn't simply fast, he was methodical, stable, and predictable in the best possible way. This gave Ferrari something they've often lacked in recent years: dependability. When Hamilton pushed, the car responded. When conditions changed, his adaptability translated into minimal losses in performance. He had become the anchor Ferrari didn't even realize they needed, and the ripple effects reached beyond just lap times. Race strategists began to lean harder on Hamilton's input during meetings. His tire degradation patterns helped set pit stop windows. His feedback shaped simulator sessions. Even the language and technical debriefs subtly shifted. "Let's check Lewis's data" became a common refrain, not because they were favoring him, but because his consistency was turning theory into reality. As Formula One rolled into Barcelona for the Spanish Grand Prix, the murmurs from Montreal hadn't faded, they had grown louder.